Makuru is the season of resting. It is the coldest, darkest time of the year. Us as Noongar people, we could smell rain on the breeze. We could see ants building their nests. So we knew the wet weather was coming in. We start renewing the old walk trails. We walk on the trails. We go out and we check the waterways to make sure that the spirits know that we're still connected with them. We connect with the spiritual energy of our waterways. We then study the bird life, marine life. We look to see if it's all healthy. Welcome here, everybody. When we go to a river, usually one of us will go ahead first and call to the spirits. Oi! Oi! We're seeking their permission to come here, and we wait for a signal. And that signal could come in any form. It could be a bird call. It could be a frog. And one of the most beautiful ones, if an eagle came over the top, because that's the spirit of the environment. And we knew that the spirits knew that we were there and they were receiving us. All these river and waterways were part of the interconnecting, interregional walk trails, or biddies as we called them in those days. And the one where we're here now at Styx River would have likely have been one of those old walk trails. And the walk trails followed the waterways because of the resources, huge amount of resources in terms of food around these waterways. And the gnamma holes, the fresh waters would have been there. The gnamma holes were made thousands and thousands of years beyond my time. But our stories were always handed down. They'd find flat granite rock and they would tap it with another rock to see where the fragile areas of the rocks were. They'd light a fire on there. When it cooled down, the rock would crack. And so they would begin breaking it with small rocks, like a little hammer. We had a responsibility to go and look after these gnamma holes to make sure they were clean, so that when the rain started in Makuru, these water holes would be nice and fresh. The ones in the trees, as a little sapling was growing, they made out 4 branches coming up. Tie those together and make like a bowl shape. They'd burn a hole in the fork of those 4 branches or 3 branches, and slowly that would burn away.
Gnamma holes were important water sources, and they'd be at strategic locations along a movement pathway, for example. They were quite controlled. Noongar people used to keep them clean so that the water was clean and drinkable. The ones in stone would usually be, when you find them intact, they're kind of actually capped with like a capstone over the top. The Styx River gnamma holes, they're really distinctive. Most of the gnamma holes that I've seen are not on a flowing watercourse like that. Most of the ones that I've seen are on a flat granite terrace in a sort of a dry area or on the coast. Some of these things are very ancient too, so the climate wasn't always as wet as it is now. At 18,000 years ago, which was the last glacial maximum, that was a period that was much colder and much drier. So what we see now is not necessarily the landscape that Noongar people at that time were working with. They were kind of playing the long game, you know. It wasn't like you're going to just whip up a gnamma hole today. It was just slowly over time they'd build them up. And the Boorna gnammas were the same. They were a slow process that I guess you might not even see the fruits of your efforts in your generation. It might be for the next generation, which is actually really a beautiful way to approach things.
Each family group would keep their water sources a secret because they didn't want overuse. We've got a walk trail that goes from Hyden to Walpole, and it follows the lake systems. Now, next to those lakes, because this is part of my living memory, those salted rivers and those salty lakes actually had fresh water right next to it, and we knew where those holes were. It's no big mystery what we Noongar people did. because we connected with the spirit of the land and we listened to the land. What I'd like us to do is to connect with that spirit of the land. And the way you can do that is you literally sit in the bush. Sit in the bush and let whatever it is come to you. In the old story of spiritual beings' creation, we became the carers of the landscape and the flora and the fauna. We'll always make sure there's something left behind. We only take what we need on a daily basis. The totemic system ensured that each family group had an animal or a plant that they were responsible for caring for. And that's how we became carers of everything.